Recently, documents were leaked that the U.S. Supreme Court is looking to overturn Roe v. Wade.
Right.
Being that the halachos on abortion aren't black and white, what should our standpoint be on these laws? Is it better for abortion to be legal from a federal level for the times that it would be mutter, or is it better to allow the possibility to ban it, especially with the left pushing for late-term abortions?
Right. So that's a very interesting question. I will tell you that as a former law student, for me, the most interesting part of this is not the Supreme Court decision, but that a leak took place in the Supreme Court. This has literally never happened in more than 200 years, 250 years in the United States, that a whole draft opinion, mamish, a whole draft opinion gets leaked. How did that happen? I mean, this is like a wall of iron, a mechitza shel barzel, that there is never a leak. Who did it? And there's a lot of speculation. Some say a liberal judge or a liberal clerk did it to embarrass the conservatives. Some say the conservatives did it because that way nobody could change their mind, right? Because what's going to be, because it's a 5-4 decision. But, you know, I know John Roberts always tries to make psharas, so I'm sure he was going to try to do it. So by solidifying the 5 people who voted for it, they can't change their mind now because people are going to say, oh, you changed your mind because of pressure. Right? All right, so it's an interesting machlokas in the gossip. Is it liberal or conservative? Okay, but that's more of the gossip issues, and again, very, very interesting, because this has never happened before. It's quite amazing. But in terms of the laws of abortions, let's go over Bekitzer. What does halacha say about abortion? So the halacha is not as complicated as you might assume. The basic rule is abortion is prohibited unless the mother's life is in danger. That is a bottom line. Now, this is true not only for Jewish people who are governed by the 613 commandments of the Torah. This is even true for non-Jews who are only governed by the 7 commandments of Noach. But the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, beferish, that the killing of a fetus is prohibited not only under the laws of Klal Yisrael, but under the laws of Bnei Noach. Now, there's a lot of discussion here, because when we say you can abort a baby or a fetus if the mother's life is in danger, danger can include a lot of things. Danger can include psychological stress as well as physical danger. Let's take, for example, rape and incest, right? Sometimes you'll have a pro-life person that says something like, I'm against abortion, except in cases of rape or incest. Now, in some ways, that's illogical. Because if I'm against abortion because I believe life begins at conception, then what gives me the right to kill the fetus because it's rape or incest? Could I kill a baby that was born from rape or incest? Certainly not. So why could I kill a fetus that was born from rape or incest? So what would halacha say about rape or incest? Halacha would say this: there is no such thing as a rape or incest exception. There is only a pikuach nefesh exception. But halacha recognizes that the trauma of forcing a woman to carry a baby that is in her body as a result of rape or incest might be so immense that it might qualify as a suicidal event. Now, that would depend on the person. So we don't say there's a rape or incest exception, but we understand that depending on the circumstances, there may be pikuach nefesh. There's also a discussion that since the Gemara says a fetus until it is 40 days old is mere water, so some would permit a very, very early abortion. It's not even called an abortion medically, within 40 days of conception. Right? So basically, abortion is forbidden unless mother's life is in danger, but danger to mother's life can be assessed psychologically as well as medically. And we have situations of early, very, very early term abortion within 40 days, right? That's kind of the overall structure. Now, let's now apply. Now, this is where you get into a bridge that could break on you, or thin ice bridge, or whatever the appropriate metaphor is. How do these halachic values translate into what my political position should be in a secular government? Now, the easiest thing to say, which might be correct, I don't mean to say that it's wrong, but the easiest thing to say would be, I would like abortion laws to reflect the values I have as a Torah Jew. And if I, as a Torah Jew, believe abortion is wrong unless the mother's life is in danger, and I believe that that is true for Noachites, for Goyim, as well as Jews, then I will be in favor of a restrictive abortion law that says no abortion unless the mother's life is in danger, and therefore I would be in favor of Justice Alito's draft opinion overruling Roe versus Wade. By the way, you do understand, I mean, I don't want to get into the legalities here. Overruling Roe versus Wade doesn't make abortion forbidden. I mean, you understand the way that works. Roe versus Wade created a constitutional right to an abortion that no state can take away. Roe versus Wade, overruling Roe versus Wade takes away the constitutional right. It is then up to every individual state to pass their own abortion laws. Rest assured, for example, that even if Roe versus Wade gets reversed, you will still be able to get an abortion in California because they'll pass their own law that's going to permit. You understand that Roe versus Wade simply means instead of creating a federal right, it will go to every individual state. Okay, but be it as it may, Texas and the like, the southern states are going to pass anti-abortion laws, and my initial reaction would be, gesundheit, that's a wonderful news. We need a law that follows not Jewish values, but the values that Hashem wants even for non-Jews. So that's the Pashut Pshat. That is the Pashut Pshat. However, there is another side to this, and I'll just throw it out for you to think about. I'm not advocating it. And that is, even if I believe that abortion is wrong and abortion is evil and abortion should be usher, I may not want a secular government to pass a law to that effect, because once it is a secular law, it will be interpreted in a secular way, which may actually take away halachic rights that would otherwise exist. Let me give you an example. Halacha says abortion is only permitted if the mother's life is in danger. Let's imagine the state of Mississippi would pass a law that says the same thing. Abortion is permitted only when the mother's life is in danger. So I might celebrate that and say, Baruch Hashem, the state of Mississippi paskins like the Rambam. Well, let's imagine you have a woman that was raped, and the Rav paskins that because of the fragility of her condition, this is a matter of life and death, and an abortion is allowed. But the state attorney general, or the state's attorney of whatever county in Mississippi, thinks it wasn't life-threatening. She could go to jail. In other words, by making it a secular law, the interpretation of that law will no longer be halachically based or religiously based. It's going to be secularly based. So one could make the argument, this is a kind of a subtle argument, that even if I am religiously pro-life, anti-abortion, I would rather have the government not get involved, and that way my freedom of religion to follow halacha is preserved, as opposed to if the government gets involved, my freedom of religion gets abridged. So the net result of all of this is that your halachic position does not automatically dictate your political position. But that's a bit of a subtlety, and many people will say that's wrong, but it is something to think about.
During the times of the Sanhedrin, what was the penalty for someone who performed an illegal abortion?
Yeah, so this is very interesting. This is a very curious dichotomy between the Noahide code and the Torah laws. The Noahide code is what pertains to Gentiles, and the Torah law is what applies to the Jewish people. And paradoxically, the Noahide law is stricter. Under the laws of the 7 commandments of Noach, if a ben Noach performs an abortion that was not permitted, it is a capital offense for which he could get the death penalty. If a Jew performs an abortion that is not permitted, it is a prohibited offense, but it is not a capital offense. And in fact, there is no designated punishment other than financial liability. And that would depend if on whether the father agreed to the abortion. Now, there's a general rule in the Torah that if you kill a fetus, you have to pay the father the damage. But if the father consented to the abortion, that wouldn't be the case, right? So that would depend. So it's a little strange that the laws of abortion are stricter for non-Jews than they are for Jews. And that throws into a wrench conceptually. I don't want to get into too much because this is a whole share. The Torah does not allow abortion. Okay, granted. But what's the halachic theory? Is abortion murder? Is that why it's forbidden? Or is abortion something else? Whatever else that would be. Now, here's the argument. If abortion would be murder, then it ought to be a capital crime like murder. The very fact that it's not a capital crime indicates that a fetus is actually not a person, but it is a potentiality of a person. And the Torah says you have to respect the potentiality that it could become, but it's not murder. And that explains another anomaly that I don't know if you were thinking about this. I had mentioned that the one halachic permissibility of abortion that is indisputed or undisputed is you can abort a fetus if the mother's life is in danger. Now, think about that. That actually doesn't make sense because the halacha generally is you're not allowed to kill one life to save another life. So why would I be allowed to kill the fetus, if I'm a doctor, kill the fetus to save the mother? Isn't that the rule that you don't kill one person to save another? In other words, what is the halachic logic that that the mother's life has precedence over the fetus's life? Rashi says, because the fetus is not really a life, the fetus is only a potential. So although you can't kill an actual life to save an actual life, you can terminate a potential life to save an actual life. Now that's what Rashi says. Rambam gives another reason. Rambam says that the conceptual basis for killing the fetus to save the mother is if the fetus is the source of the endangerment, the fetus is a roevwade. The fetus is like threatening the mother's life, although it's an involuntary roevwade. So those are two different rationales. But at least according to Rashi, you clearly see that abortion is not the same as murder. And that is why it is not a capital crime.